Welcome to Riff Ram Review, your TCU sports talk home right here on 88.7 KTCU. Here are your hosts, Seth Dowdle, Ian Nepetian, and Zion Trammell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Riff Ram Review right here on 88.7 FM KTCU, the choice, your choice for college radio. I'm Zion Trammell here with Ian Nepetian and Seth Dowdle for our final episode of this semester before winter break. Guys, I can't believe it, honestly. I can't believe we're at this point now. We're in the midst of finals week, but we take no days off. We're still filming here at the studio. So, gentlemen, how are finals going?
So far, so good. I finished up on Monday, so it's been a pretty chill week for myself, but very happy to be here. Last episode of the semester. We will have one or two episodes over break, but last episode in the studio until mid-January, so just kind of weird, but again, very happy to be here.
Yeah, next time we do this, we're going to be doing this over Zoom.
Yeah.
So that'll
be interesting.
That'll be very weird. We'll see how it works. But yeah, finals week is going okay. I got my last one tomorrow morning, and then I'm out of here for a month. So it's surreal feeling. Excited to do this though. We got a lot to tackle. We were fed content. We did not have a lot to talk about on Saturday, and then Sunday rolled around, and we had a bajillion things to say. So let's do it, guys. Let's get into it.
Yeah, there was a lot of news coming out of the TCU football, I guess this weekend on social media, with defensive coordinator Joe Gillespie being let go a couple weeks after the season ended. So a little bit surprising. I thought maybe as time went on, maybe they would hold on to both of their coordinators, but Joe Gillespie out. Andy Avalos in at defensive coordinator, formerly at Boise State. He will take on the defensive play calling for TCU. For Joe Gillespie, they ranked 78th nationally in points allowed and 100th in yards allowed. This defense wasn't very good, as seen in that game against Colorado and Kansas State several times this season, where the defense came up short, and Andy Avalos comes in. He was at Oregon as well under Mario Cristobal, and in 2019 was a semifinalist for the Broyles Award, which goes to the nation's top assistant coach. So interesting hire here. I personally don't know too much about him, but I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, it's a change of pace. I felt like something on either side of the ball needed to change going into next year. One or the other, and Sonny Dykes clearly saw that the defense was more of a struggle point than the offense to a certain extent. I think I'd agree with that. Defense kind of felt like a sieve for most of the year. Going all the way back to last year too, there were times where obviously they came up big, but it kind of felt like they relied more on turnovers and a bend but don't break kind of strategy, and at certain points in time this year we saw how that didn't pan out. But when you give up 65 plus points in your season finales and back-to-back seasons, certainly something that you need to address, and that is what they've done. And with Avalos, you go to a guy who was coaching Boise State, a team that just won the Mountain West under an interim head coach, I might just add as well. But those defenses at Oregon that he coached, other than the COVID year, which I think we can throw everything that happened in 2020 in football out the window, were really good. And that's what that's what I think Sonny's banking on, is that he can he might not be the best head coach, but he seems to be a pretty dang good coordinator. At least at his time at Oregon. Yeah,
and I mean, I guess I'd say overall, I feel excited for this. Obviously, it's tough to say goodbye to Joe Gillespie, just for the fact that he, was a part of that defense that took us to a national championship last year that everybody, remembers, and it's definitely a tough moment, I'm sure, for the team, I'm sure for Sonny Dykes, but it's something that needed to happen. Again, like you said, Zion, you're surprised that it kind of happened at this point. And I was talking to Seth and you guys just, off the air, that I'm just glad that once we came out saying that Gillespie's gone, that we already had someone in mind. I was going to be really worried that we were going to say, all right, Joe Gillespie's been fired, and our search begins today. I was really worried about that, because even though it seems like you should have those things in place beforehand, sometimes Teams don't. Right, but really curious to see how this defense gets along with Andy Avalos back there at DC. But yeah, again, I would just say I'm excited. The defense between last year and this year, you obviously lost quite a few key pieces. Dylan Horton to the draft, D. Winters to the draft, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson to the draft, and the defensive line was a bit of a mishmash all season. Couldn't really get much going there, but at the same time, a lot of the defense was still the same. It was a lot of returning guys, and I think that's where it was kind of maybe flabbergasting to a degree on why this defense struggled so much, and even more so than it did the previous year, because, yes, it was a lot of same guys, but even last year when we went to the Natty, the defense wasn't this spectacular put-together piece that was just some magnificent thing. It still had its problems.
I mean, yeah, they gave up, 40-plus points to Michigan. Yep. The only game I can really point to where I remember saying, hey, the defense, carried the team to a victory was that Texas game last year.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what we've been like, maybe that can happen again. And it hasn't. But you need a turnaround year from the defense, and if there's someone that can do it, I think Andy Avalos is a guy that might be able to. When he got to Oregon, his first year was in 2019 as the DC. The year prior, they gave up 27 points per game. In his first year, they only gave up 16.5 en route to being the 9th-ranked defense in the country. So if there's a guy that can turn it around quickly, he's certainly shown that he can do that. But yeah, we look at the defense, 110 combined points between the playoff games last year. Obviously, those are two very good teams in Michigan and Georgia, and then 500 passing yards against Colorado. Just not going to do it. But I think the consensus here between the three of us is optimism, right? Glad that something was changed. Yep. I feel like if we were going into next year with just the status quo, I think a lot of people in the TCU fandom would have felt a little uneasy about, hey, it's like, okay, like we trust you, but like something has to happen. And it has happened, and we'll see how it goes. He was on a heater, by the way, Sonny, on, what was that, Sunday?
Was it Sunday? No, Monday. I think it was Monday, yeah.
The commitments that were coming in.
This is crazy.
I mean, and then yesterday got some people leaving for the draft that kind of, Monty Bailey.
Yep. Andrew Coker, some of those guys.
Made me a little sad.
Yeah.
But Monday was like...
Everything's going on.
Sonny's cooking. Sonny's cooking.
I saw a few tweets from players that like, just wait. You'll see how this will play out. But yeah, I think just wanted to wish the rest of the guys that are declaring for the draft the best of luck, including Bailey and Coker, and even our guy Rick DeBrew is moving on. Yeah. So we wish them the best of luck, and Joe Gillespie as well. I could tell. Hearing from a lot of the players, they really liked playing for him, especially what we heard from Johnny Hodges in the beginning of the season, and it definitely seemed like he was a good coach. That players liked him a lot. It's unfortunate that obviously the scheme was not working, and I think a big thing was the lack of pressure that the defensive line was able to generate, and so. Whether that can be fixed with this new scheme or not is yet to be seen. But yeah, TCU did land some new transfer students or transfer players. They got Louisiana Tech transfer Carson Bruno and San Diego State's Cade Bennett. They got some help on the offense and defensive line as they said goodbye to a few other guys that hit the portal as well. Randon Fontenette, I believe he transferred to Vanderbilt.
That's correct.
And we had some other guys as well, Cordell Russell. But yeah, it's kind of a bit of a shakeup here. What do you guys make of what Sonny's doing so far with these commitments and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think we're finally going to be able to see Sonny's team, right? I mean, this last year's team was still to a degree from that Gary Patterson era. So now this coming season in 2024 and whatever we see in the spring and other things done over the just once the transfer portal opens up, I'm really curious to see what happens, because this is really going to be Sonny's team. This is going to be the players he's recruited, the guys that he's been looking at for the last several years, as opposed to kind of working with what was there when he got here, right? And that's kind of how it's been from last season and this past year as well. So I'm optimistic some people, not many people, but some people are calling for Sonny to kind of look at himself in the mirror. I'm just shaking my head because I think that's so unreasonable. Again, for the fact that these aren't his teams yet. I mean, again, the guys that he's had for the last 2 seasons, those aren't his guys that he's recruited. So give him a chance with some of the guys that he has looked at, his guys have looked at, to basically just see what they do.
I will say the one concern that I do have is these last 2 recruiting classes. There's been not mass exoduses, but there's been a pretty stark rise of these players leaving. Like Cordell Russell was the top ranked recruit out of this last class. Randon Fontenette was a pretty big recruit as well, and they're gone. And it's like it's good to build out of the transfer portal, but it's also like pretty important to develop these young guys, because that's what that TCU team was last year, was a bunch of players who maybe weren't the most highly recruited. Some were pretty highly recruited, like Quentin Johnson and Max Duggan, but they were developed over 3-4 year periods, and by the time that they hit that peak of the development cycle, they were awesome. So that's my main concern, is being able to keep the talent that he recruits, like the Cordell Russells and such.
Yeah.
But if he can build out the transfer portal, I mean, Braylon James, Nana Asofo-Mensah, 2 Notre Dame transfers that came in the other day as well. I mean, hey, like if this is going to work, it's going to work, and I hope it does, and we'll see how it pans out. With the Hoove dog, I think that's where this is going for next year.
Yeah, I would imagine that Josh Hoover will be our quarterback for next season.
He better.
I mean, I haven't heard any news about TCU, going after any of these quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Where did Blake Shapen transfer to? Mississippi State. We had Dylan Gabriel go to Oregon.
Yep.
As Seth hit that one right on the nose. And KJ Jefferson, has he?
I don't think he's officially in the portal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Riley Leonard from Duke is at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle McCord, right before we started, just transferred to Nebraska.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's another big name. And then Malik Murphy, right before we started this, also entered the portal. That's Texas backup quarterback. Really high ceiling for him. Would not be upset if TCU gave him a look. I don't know if they'll get him. I don't think they will. But that kid has a very high ceiling, in my opinion. And if whoever lands him will be pretty lucky, I think.
Yeah, that's an interesting move, though, with Kyle McCord heading to Nebraska. I remember you also predicted that, and I thought, really? Like, Nebraska?
I'm on it, okay? I'm the crystal ball, 247 Sports, hire me right now.
Yeah, Seth just knows something. But I mean, I would imagine that Hoover's going to be the quarterback next season, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And, yeah, the whole thing with, like, Sonny needs to evaluate himself. I mean, come on, people. Really? Like, good Lord. Give it some time, man. Like, even if you did, like, who would be a better option right now to bring in someone completely different to replace Sonny Dykes? It just wouldn't make any sense to me. I don't know. I just think that's kind of silly. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Hoover can do, and seeing what the offense will turn out to be after losing some guys. It really is a shame that we're losing Imani Bailey. I'm glad that he's going to the draft. He had an incredible season, but we'll see who can fill in for that spot.
Yeah, I think heading into this next year, and it's kind of what we were talking about last week. Seth brought it up in saying how it was kind of unfathomable that TCU went into the season with Hoover as their backup, right? Being in that situation.
It didn't make a lot of sense.
Right, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I remember that we had Chance Nolan, and he picked up his stuff and just left out of nowhere.
I forgot about that as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But this year, I'm kind of in that same boat of I'm happy that Hoover hopefully is going to be that starter. I don't feel I don't feel the most comfortable if Chandler Morris is the backup still.
Well, and you got, I'm going to mess this up. You got Haas Haney. Haney, sorry, whatever. Okay. Haney. Going to be playing the state title for Alito in this weekend.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's presumably going to sign on when the early signing day period starts in 2 days. That's on Friday. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have him, but again, it's the same kind of situation as Hoover, where I know Hoover wasn't a true freshman this year, but he's a young
still
guy.
Very little experience.
And so that's why, I would like to look in the portal. And it's one thing, I mentioned Malik Murphy. If you brought in Malik Murphy, he's probably expecting to start.
Yep.
But someone else, I don't have a name off the top of my head. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And some of those names have been picked off that I mentioned. I know you mentioned Blake Shapen, Zion. He's going to Mississippi State to win 3 games in the SEC. So, but yeah, I would like to see someone else come in, not even to start. Insurance is great. Insurance is a great thing because these quarterbacks are, people are fragile beings. These defensive linemen are very big boys, and they can crush little Hoover. Josh Hoover is not little. I just want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
But quarterbacks get hurt, and it's always good to have someone ready and rearing to go. But I would you all like to see someone? I mean, Ian, I know that you probably agree with like someone else. Like a veteran type of guy that's maybe not expecting to start.
That's my thing.
But that's the problem. If they're a veteran in the transfer portal, they don't want to go somewhere.
They don't want to go somewhere to not start, right? Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm kind of applying my NFL, my NFL brain to it and saying, it would be great to have, like right now, to a degree with the Jets, right? Having Aaron Rodgers being there and just kind of coaching these guys through while he's injured, but to have a piece like that maybe on the team that is going to help someone like Josh Hoover find his way through his first full season, that's what I would prefer. But again, that's not really that's not really what any of these guys in college, is really looking for either. So.
Yeah, I just have some news here, guys. Kyle McCord is moving on from Nebraska.
Really?
I just looked on Twitter. Yeah, it says according to Pete Nakos, he said that, and on 3 Sports, the former Buckeyes signal caller will keep his transfer portal recruitment open. So you don't know everything, Seth. But that's interesting. I wonder why. Maybe to come because he was listening to us and he realized there might be a position open, so he's coming to TCU.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on the Nebraska quarterback situation.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know.
Hey, Nebraska's in Flipmas mood too. The 5-star recruit. Oh man, what is his name? The Georgia quarterback recruit. Nebraska's looking to flip him to their side.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm trying to think.
But yeah, that's
Sorry,
interesting. That's interesting. I'm curious to see why he just decided to leave Nebraska. But yeah, lots happening in the transfer portal. Looking forward to seeing what else TCU can do, how they can attack the portal, and see what players they can bring in, and hope to improve on this season. We weren't sure if we were going to be talking about football for a while, but we felt this news with Joe Gillespie was worth mentioning, and they made some noise over the weekend. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the NFL and just so much that happened this past weekend right here on Riff Ram Review on 88.7 The Choice.